50 boys, one major rule: walk or die. And the worst part, they volunteer for this. Welcome to America's favorite death march. Hey y'all, I'm Alicia, and this is Real Reckless Reviews, the channel where emotional honesty meets savage commentary. If you like your movie breakdowns real, raw, and a little unhinged, hit that subscribe button. Today, I'm diving into one of the bleakest, most brutal dystopias ever put on the screen, The Long Walk. Let's get into it. In a dystopian 1970s America, ravaged by war and ruled by a totalitarian military regime, 50 teenage boys are selected for a brutal annual event, the Long Walk. The rules are simple and savage. Maintain a pace of at least 3 miles per hour or face deadly consequences. The last boy standing wins a cash prize and one wish. As the miles stretch on, the boys confront exhaustion, fear, and the twisted logic of a regime that turns suffering into spectacle. What starts as a competition quickly becomes a psychological war zone, where friendships form under fire and every step could be your last. With haunting performances and a slow burn intensity, The Long Walk explores what it means to endure, resist, and survive in a world that's forgotten how to care. The story unfolds in a dystopian version of 1970s America, where the government has collapsed into a totalitarian military regime. To distract the population from economic despair and reinforce obedience, the regime hosts a televised annual event called the Long Walk. It's not a celebration, it's a spectacle of suffering. 50 teenage boys, one from each state, are selected to participate. The rules are brutally simple. Each boy must walk non-stop at a pace of at least 3 miles per hour. If a walker slows down, he receives a warning. After 3 warnings, he is executed on the spot. The last boy remaining wins a large cash prize and is granted one wish, anything he desires. Ray Garrity, the participant from Maine, is driven to the starting line by his mother, who pleads with him to back out of the walk. Her desperation is heartbreaking because she understands the truth. This isn't a game, it's a death sentence. But Ray refuses to back out. He's not just walking for glory, he's walking for something deeper. At the border, Ray meets the other participants, including Peter Pete McVries, Billy Stebbins, Arthur Art Baker, Collie Parker, Gary Barkovich, Hank Olson, and Richard Harkness. At the start of the walk, each boy is stripped of his name and assigned a number. Ray becomes number 47, Pete is 23, and Stebbins is 38. The numbers aren't just for tracking, they're a way to erase the boys' identities. The regime doesn't care who these boys are, it cares how long they last. Each boy is issued rations and canteens at the start of the walk. Every hour, soldiers on the half-track would distribute food and water while the boys continue walking. The food is basic, nutrient-dense but minimal, just enough to keep them alive and moving. There are no bathroom breaks. If a boy needs to relieve himself, he must do so while walking. Stopping, even for a second, can earn a warning. Stepping off the road gets them instantly shot down. The walk is overseen by a mysterious and cold-hearted official known only as the Major, who occasionally appears to greet the boys and enforce the rules. Some of the boys are cocky and some are terrified, but all of them are walking towards their own destruction. Pete McVries quickly stands out. He's sharp, soulful, and deeply principled. His dry humor and emotional intelligence makes him the heart of the walk. He becomes Ray's closest ally, and their friendship becomes the emotional backbone of the story. Billy Stebbins is quiet, observant, and oddly composed. He keeps to himself, but when he speaks, it's with purpose. Gary Barkovich starts off cocky and antagonistic, clearly trying to mask his fear with bravado. But as the walk wears on, the cracks show. Art Baker is kind, steady, and quietly brave. He's the one who listens, who supports, and who doesn't need to be loud to be strong. And so the walk begins, and the horror wastes no time. A kid named Curly is the first to die. He suffers a leg cramp, which slows him down. He receives 3 warnings. After failing to maintain the required pace, he is sadly executed. It's actually crazy because the boys had a feeling that Curly was much younger than the required age for the walk, which was 18. Anyway, the rest of the boys are forced to keep on walking. They now know that this is seriously going down. After some time, Gary Barkovich provokes another walker named Rank into attacking him. Rank ends up charging at Barkovich, but he misses him and falls straight on his face. For some reason, Rank just lays on the ground squealing instead of getting up. All the boys yell for him to get up and keep walking. Rank is given his 3 warnings, but he is executed. Barkovich ends up feeling bad because he was just messing with Rank. I don't think he wanted him to die, but anyway, the rest of the boys end up shunning Barkovich for his cruelty. Meanwhile, the walk is running through the boys, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Some collapse from injury, others try to escape. A few simply break under the weight of insomnia and fear. Richard Harkness gets a compound fracture on his ankle, which he continues to walk on for so long that his foot is ruined. After suffering a severe sprain on a steep hill, his ankle got progressively worse throughout the walk until he eventually collapsed from exhaustion and the inability to go on. After receiving his 3 warnings, Harkness is executed around the 67th mile mark. As the miles stretch on and the bodies drop, the boys begin to open up to each other, sharing their hopes, fears, and personal histories. Ray and Pete grow closer. Ray opens up to Pete about the real reason he entered the walk. Years ago, the Major executed Ray's father in front of him and his mother for teaching forbidden ideas and refusing to pledge allegiance to the regime. That moment shattered Ray's world. He's not just walking to survive, he's walking to win, to claim his wish, and to use it to kill the man who destroyed his family. His plan is simple: win the walk, ask for a carbine rifle, and take the Major's life. He listens, but he doesn't agree. He shares his own story, one marked by abuse, neglect, and a lifetime of walking through pain. He tells Ray that he's metaphorically been walking his whole life, and when he's finally had enough, he plans to sit down and accept his fate. That confession hits like a gut punch. He isn't chasing revenge, he's chasing peace. Hank Olsen becomes delirious and tries to attack the soldiers. They shoot him, but they don't finish him quickly. They let him bleed out in front of the others, a slow, agonizing death meant to send a message. The next morning, the group mourns him. The boys learn that Hank Olsen was actually married, and they agree that whoever wins the walk will send money to his widow. That moment, when grief turns into solidarity, is one of the few sparks of humanity left in the story. Barkovich, consumed by guilt over Rank's death and crushed by isolation, begs to be accepted back into the group. Ray agrees, but it's too late. Barkovich is already broken beyond repair. Unable to carry the weight of what he's done and what he's become, he stabs himself in the throat, and the walk claims another soul. The remaining walkers, Ray, Pete, Stebbins, Baker, and Parker, keep moving. As the walk grinds into its final miles, the emotional toll becomes unbearable. One of Ray's shoes starts breaking apart, so he's forced to take both shoes off and continue the long walk barefoot. As they walk through Ray's hometown, Ray spots his mother among the spectators. Her face is like a lifeline for him, a reminder of everything he's lost and everything he's still fighting for. Overcome with emotion, Ray slows down, nearly reaching for her, risking execution in the process. He tells her that he's sorry for signing up for the walk. Ray nearly receives his third warning, but Pete is there. He grabs Ray and pulls him back, and keeps him moving. That moment is pure heartbreak. Ray doesn't just want comfort, he wants to go home. But the only way he can go home now is by winning the walk. Stebbins, who has become extremely sick, urges the others to let go of their camaraderie. He says there's no point in friendship anymore. With so few boys left, kindness is a liability. The walk doesn't reward loyalty, it rewards endurance. Then the tension explodes. Pushed past his breaking point, Collie Parker steals a guard's rifle and shoots one of the soldiers. The guards retaliate, riddling him with bullets. But before he dies, Collie turns the rifle on himself. It's not just rebellion, it's desperation. It's the only control he has left. Art Baker, bleeding internally and too weak to continue, makes his choice. He thanks Ray and Pete for being his friends. He stops walking and he's sadly executed. But he dies on his own terms, with dignity, and with the quiet understanding that friendship mattered more than survival. These deaths aren't just tragic, they're intimate. Every loss feels personal, and at this point, every goodbye is a gut punch. Stebbins, now barely holding on, drops a bombshell. He's the Major's illegitimate son. His wish, if he won, was to be accepted into the Major's household, to finally be seen, acknowledged, and loved. But this regime doesn't do love. Stebbins knows he won't make it much longer. He says goodbye to Ray and Pete and stops walking. The soldiers shoot him, and the walk claims another soul. Now, only Ray and Pete remain. After 5 days and over 330 miles of walking, the boys reach a city. The crowd is massive and the energy is electric. But it's not a celebration, it's bloodlust. As the boys enter the town, Pete sits down. He's exhausted, and he's ready to just let Ray win. But Ray refuses to let Pete just go out like that. He lifts Pete up, and he urges him to keep walking. He starts walking again, and he's appreciative that Ray even cared enough about him to not let him give up. Then, without warning, Ray stops walking. He is given his first, second, and third warning. This whole time, Pete is screaming for him to get up, but the soldiers hold him back. The Major executes Ray, and Ray is shot dead. He sacrificed himself so Pete could live. Pete is declared the winner. The crowd celebrates, but Pete is absolutely devastated. Pete and Ray really developed a close relationship along the walk, so he was very upset that Ray was killed. When asked to make his wish, Pete doesn't hesitate. He asks for a carbine rifle. The Major grants his wish. The moment Pete gets the rifle, he turns and shoots the Major. One shot, one act of defiance, one final rejection of everything the walk stood for. He fulfilled Ray's wish. Then Pete walks away, alone, silent, and forever changed. The audience would expect that Pete would be shot down for shooting the Major in front of all his soldiers, but somehow Pete is allowed to walk away. The final image is haunting. Pete's solitary figure disappears down the road, carrying the weight of every boy who didn't make it. It's not a victory, it's survival. And it's a quiet rebellion against a system that tried to erase them all. Okay, so let me just say this. The Long Walk is not the kind of film you throw on for background noise while you scroll TikTok or Instagram. No, ma'am. This movie grabs you by the throat and sits you down and says, you're gonna feel this whether you like it or not. The emotional weight of The Long Walk doesn't come from a dramatic speech or flashy rebellion. It comes from the quiet unraveling of these boys, from the way their personalities crack under pressure, and from the slow, suffocating realization that survival doesn't mean freedom. It just means you get to keep walking with more ghosts than you started with. There were moments where I genuinely had to pause and just breathe because the tension was so thick, I felt like I was holding my breath for entire scenes. But even with all that intensity, I liked this film. Some scenes were genuinely hard to watch, not because they were graphic, but because they were wild. The emotional breakdowns, the quiet deaths, and the way the boys start to lose themselves 1 mile at a time is all so raw that you feel like you're walking with them. By the time the final scene rolled around, I wasn't even watching. I was bracing. I knew it wasn't going to end clean. I was wondering who was going to be the winner. I was hoping that both Pete and Ray both could have won because I was rooting for both of them. But alas, it can only be one winner. But I still wasn't ready. And when Pete walked away, carrying the weight of every boy who didn't make it, I just sat there staring at the screen. The performances, baby, they ate down. Cooper Hoffman as Ray Garrity gave us a young man who's not just physically exhausted, but emotionally shredded. Cooper gave us a masterclass in quiet devastation. He didn't need big speeches or dramatic outbursts. His pain lived in the way he walked, the way he hesitated, and the way his eyes flickered when he saw his mother. You could feel the weight of every mile in his body. And when he finally stopped walking, it felt like watching someone surrender to gravity itself. And by the way, Cooper Hoffman is the son of the late great actor Philip Seymour Hoffman. So it's not surprising that he did such a good job as Ray Garrity. David Johnson as Pete McVries was the emotional anchor of the whole film. He brought this layered, soulful energy that made Pete feel like the kind of friend you fight for even when you're falling apart. His delivery was so grounded, so emotionally precise, that every time he spoke, it felt like the air shifted. He didn't just act, he held space for the story to breathe. All of the boys showed up, dug deep, and gave us the performances that felt personal, painful, and unforgettable. They all did a great job playing their roles for real. Now I know some folks are gonna say, this feels like the Hunger Games, and yes, I see it. But let's be real, The Long Walk is like the Hunger Games if you stripped out the glam, the rebellion speeches, and the flaming dresses, and replaced them with trauma, silence, and the slow unraveling of teenage boys who were never meant to survive. It's not about fighting back, it's about enduring. The Long Walk is what happens when you're forced to keep moving even after your soul has already tapped out. The fact that this movie is based on a Stephen King novel, written under his pseudonym, Richard Bachman, makes so much sense because only Stephen King could come up with something this emotionally savage and still make it feel weirdly poetic. He doesn't do comforting storytelling. He does stories that crawl under your skin and sit in your chest. In this adaptation, it doesn't just honor that, it leans all the way into it. Critics praised the film for its emotional depth, stripped down intensity, and haunting performances, especially from Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson. Even though the box office numbers didn't explode, the reviews were glowing. with many calling it one of Stephen King's most powerful cinematic adaptations. The film has a score of 88% on Rotten Tomatoes, making it one of the highest rated Stephen King adaptations ever. The Long Walk pulled in a solid $53 million worldwide, with $34 million of that coming from domestic audiences, which is more than double its $20 million budget. And honestly, that's a testament to how deeply it resonated with people who were brave enough to sit through it. And that's it for this breakdown, y'all. If you made it to the end, go ahead and stretch and drink some water, because The Long Walk didn't just take us through a movie, it took us through an emotional marathon. Do me a favor, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and drop a comment below telling me which moment hit you the hardest. And if you got a movie you want me to break down next, something raw, messy, or just straight up chaotic, slide it into the comments. Real Reckless Reviews is here for the drama, the trauma, and the truth. Until next time, keep walking the long walk, y'all. Bye.